By its own definition, Cuban society is a complex blend, a multicultural fusion. A product boiled up out of the bittersweet story of sugar, which is told at the Havana Club Museum of Rum.
Christopher Columbus, during his second trip to America, he brought the first sugarcane. Why? Sugarcane is not native from here. Sugarcane is native from Africa. From Africa, it went to India, from India to China, from China to Portugal, and finally to the Canary Islands, from where Christopher Columbus brought it to here during his second trip in 1493.
Cuba's climate was good for sugarcane.
The weather is so hot, so humid, that's a good combination to the sugarcane. At the very beginning, only 3 varieties, but in Cuba have been created 150 different types of sugarcanes. The first sugar mills appeared in Cuba in 1500s.
They used wooden sugarcane presses.
We used to put inside the mill the sugarcane to squeeze it, to squash it, to get the juice.
And large sugar boiling pots.
And the sugarcane juice has to be heated, cooked, to evaporate the water of it. It's around 70% of the juice and water have to be evaporated.
In the 1800s, sugar transformed Cuba into a wealthy plantation society.
And during 400 years, the Spaniards imported to Cuba around 1 million of African people. Horrible, because the 20–30% died in the travel from Africa to Cuba. In Cuba, they used to work very hard, 16 hours per day. The average life was around 8 years.
Today, sugarcane is still the island's most important crop.
In Cuba, it is like pig. Nothing is waste. We use everything from it. We make sugar, we make rum, paper, wood, furniture, medicine, etc., etc. But the happiest child is the rum.
To make rum, molasses made from sugarcane is fermented, distilled, and aged.
The final step is the blending. Very important, because in Cuba everything is like that. From the very beginning, in Cuba, the music, the culture, even the people, is a result of a mixture, of blending. If we don't blend it, it's not Cuban. That's why we have to blend it, like Cuban people.
In 19th century Cuba, 100 different African ethnic groups were mixed together in the crucible of slavery. They forged the roots of their African heritage into new Afro-Cuban customs. An act of cultural survival. The Casa de Africa Museum explores the diverse origins and traditions of Afro-Cuban culture. Displays of music, dance, religion, and art express the vigor of Afro-Cuban customs. The collection includes contemporary pieces gifted from African nations whose descendants live in Cuba. This modern-day sculpture, carved from a single piece of wood, is from the Yoruba area of Nigeria. She represents the African woman as procreator of the world.
It's very typical of the Yoruba area, but also of the entire African continent. Like the hair and the way she meditates while being pregnant. And we see she is bringing a new being into the world, which is why we chose her as the logo of our institution.
In Cuba, the enslaved Yorubans, wanting to practice their native religion under the watchful eyes of their Spanish captors, disguised their own deities as Catholic saints. The result, Santeria, meaning the way of the saints. Here, the beat of the sacred bata drums summoned Shango, the Orisha of war, virility, thunder, and blood. Beaded gourds initiate the ritual dance of ocean, the Orisha of gold, sexuality, rivers, and honey. African influence is evident in nearly every aspect of Cuba's dynamic culture. Without African labor, Cuba as we know it would not exist. Consider a Cuba with no sugar, no rum, and no tobacco. Through this narrow doorway in Old Havana, the exotic aroma of tobacco wafts from the cigar museum, Casa del Tabaco. Inside, a stack of cured and aged tobacco leaves prepare to meet their destiny.
Well, over here we have our master twister, Alexis, from La Casa del Habano Museum.
A master twister is an expert in rolling all of several hundred standard cigar shapes and sizes, called vitolas.
In order to be a premium cigar, it has to be rolled by hand.
5 varieties of tobacco leaves mixed together will give the cigar a distinct flavor and aroma.
Now, as we see in this finished cigar, he has to give the cigar its outer layer. The layers are selected from the most important region in Cuba, Pinar del Río province, in the area of Vuelta Abajo, which grows the best quality leaves in the whole world.
One of the most famous brands is Cohiba. The name harkens back to the religious traditions of the indigenous Cubans, the native Tainos. Through the ritual of the cajoba, the Tainos communicated with the gods using the smoke as a conductor.
They perform rituals asking for water, asking for a prosperous harvest, asking for good health. They heal skin sores and stomach problems using the leaves of the tobacco plant. And the most important moment in their community, in their everyday lives, was a ritual to the gods.
The European ritual of a good smoke involved more than a great Cuban cigar. Elaborate cigar rings and labels were produced by the millions. Even the essential cigar box itself was a work of art. The inspiration was to have Cuba's cigars travel the world in elegant packaging.
When we talk of cigars, we are talking about Havana. We are talking about Cuba. We are talking about our identity, our culture.